Hey everyone, it's Alexander, the real Mr. Robinson. Welcome to the channel, and this is my review for Hulk, also known as Ang Lee's Hulk, or if you rented it on YouTube like I did, The Hulk, because that one extra word apparently makes all the difference. So anyway, this movie came out in 2003, and I would say that this is the origin story of this character. Bruce Banner is a scientist studying in gamma radiation when he gets into a tragic accident that exposes his body to a powerful blast of gamma radiation and turns him into a creature of pure motion and power known to the world as the Incredible Hulk. If any of you out there remember the old Q videos for the Incredible Hulk coaster before it got upgraded at Islands of Adventure, then you'll probably know why I explained the Hulk's origin the way I did. But that's not what this movie is about. Bruce Banner's father, David Banner, injects himself with some radiation that he then passes on to his son. Early into Bruce's childhood, David finds out what he's actually done. So like any self-respecting, sensible, and loving father, he tries to kill his only son. That doesn't work out, so Bruce Banner is estranged from his father, and his mother is unfortunately killed trying to protect Bruce. So decades go by. Bruce is now a scientist at UC Berkeley, but he gets into an accident that reignites this thing that he's had since childhood, and he eventually grows into the monster known as the Hulk, and his father comes back into play, this time played by Nick Nolte. So this movie was a huge deal when it was coming out. Like I said, it came out in 2003, just 1 year after Sam Raimi's Spider-Man just became a huge juggernaut and catapulted the comic book genre into new heights. And not to put down the first X-Men movie, which also helped with the revitalization of the genre after Batman and Robin killed it, but it wasn't as big a hit as Spider-Man. So after Spider-Man, everyone was looking forward to the Hulk, and so was I. I may have said this several times before on this channel, but growing up, I was more of a DC guy. And my main exposure and love for the DC property was mainly due to the Batman animated series, the Superman animated series, the Justice League animated series, and the Teen Titans, you guessed it, animated series. So I was always more of a DC person as a kid, but there were always two Marvel characters that had a special place in my heart. That wasn't until I became more of a Marvel fan. That was Spider-Man, because he was a teenage superhero that wasn't a sidekick like Robin, and the Hulk because, you know, it's a big monster, so monsters are cool to me. So I and so many other people were excited for Ang Lee's Hulk. I actually saw this movie in the theaters when it came out with my dad, and my dad hated it. And it should have been something up my alley, but I actually really didn't like it, and this was considered a big disappointment when it came out in 2003. And over the years, it's gained this reputation as one of the weirdest comic book movies out there. So once I finally rewatched the movie for this review, I was reminded why I didn't like this movie as a 12-year-old, despite me being a huge Hulk fan. It's because this movie is so goddamn boring. Now, I know some of you might be thinking that I'm criticizing this movie in a way where I'm saying whenever the special effects aren't on screen, the movie's boring. And that's not really the case at all. I get that there's more to the Hulk character than just a giant green rage monster, because the character was always created as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where the Hulk is Mr. Hyde and Bruce Banner is Dr. Jekyll. And there's a lot of great story elements that you can do with Bruce Banner trying to escape the government, trying to just live his life with this thing inside of him that just could attack and unleash upon the world at any moment, and it's something that he can't control. So with Ang Lee, who has proven himself to be really good with drama, you'd think he'd knock something like this out of the park, but the way the movie tries to tell its story is not only dull, but it's just flat out goofy at times. Eric Bana is so boring in this movie. He's awful, he's uncharismatic. If he were playing Bruce Wayne rather than Bruce Banner, then I think he could have done a fine job, but there is nothing about Eric Bana that screams gamma scientist. He kind of reminds me of Miles Teller as Reed Richards in the 2015 Fantastic Four movie, where, yeah, I've seen this actor do good things, but they feel so miscast in this role. They come across more like meatheads than actual scientists. Jennifer Connelly is also pretty dull in this movie as Betty Ross, although if I were to say anything in this movie's credits, I think I like Jennifer Connelly in this role more than I did Liv Tyler in The Incredible Hulk. By comparison, The Incredible Hulk is a masterpiece, but Liv Tyler, I never thought she was a good actress to begin with. But Jennifer Connelly, we've seen her be good in many other film roles, and with this movie in particular, she is just not... Me saying that she's better than Liv Tyler is not really a compliment because she's still very flat in this movie. Sam Elliott is fine as General Thunderbolt Ross. Like Jennifer Connelly, he seems to be more charismatic than his MCU counterpart, William Hurt. But even then, General Ross doesn't get a whole lot to do. Probably the most interesting actor in this movie is Nick Nolte playing David Banner, and this is where the goofy elements come in. Because the movie is essentially this son trying to reconnect with his long-lost dad, only to realize that, wow, you were actually a real scumbag. And it's just really goofy with Nick Nolte's involvement. And the big scene that really stands out to me in terms of goofiness is near the end of the movie, before the big climax. Bruce Banner and David Banner are chained up in a giant black room. Bruce Banner is conflicted and torn apart that this old crackpot is his dad. And there's a moment where he just does the "Ah!" thing where he's just in pain. Mentally, but then Nick Nolte just sits down after that and does this. It comes out of nowhere, and it's goddamn hilarious. Another aspect of this film that gives it its weird reputation amongst some is the decision Ang Lee made to make this movie look like a comic book. Now, say what you want about Zack Snyder and where he made Watchmen look like a panel-for-panel recreation of the original book, but it at least looked like a movie. What Ang Lee does with Hulk here, it's so distracting because you'll have these very bizarre transitions, you'll have different shots next to other shots, and you even have the font that's usually present in most comic books. And I guess it's an interesting idea, but Ang Lee doesn't really make it work. I feel like if Sam Raimi had done this with Spider-Man, he could have made it work, because Sam Raimi is known for his frenetic and just over-the-top and creative cinematography. So I feel like Sam Raimi could have pulled this off, but in Hulk, especially with this movie trying to be as serious as it is, it so does not work. So that's the drama stuff. It doesn't really work, but maybe the Hulk stuff can actually save this movie from being boring. Even that doesn't work out too well. The first time Bruce Banner transforms into the Hulk, he's at UC Berkeley. He's not hurting anyone, there's no military for him to fight, so that's a very, very boring first sequence. And then later on when he fights the military, that sequence is also boring as shit, because he's trying to punch out tanks, but he's more like slightly tapping them. When he throws tanks or tries to bring down helicopters, there's no real collateral damage, there's no explosions when they make impact. Like seriously, there's a sequence where he's on a helicopter, takes out one of the rudders, it's crashing down, and there's not even an explosion. The helicopter just falls to the ground as if it's a toy falling to the ground. No explosion whatsoever. Now, there are two Hulk sequences that are just not boring, but more goofy and flat out confusing. The first is the infamous sequence where the Hulk fights off 3 gamma-radiated dogs, including a poodle. There's a sequence where one of the dogs bites the Hulk in the junk. There's another moment where the Hulk grabs the dog by the hind leg, lifts him up, and punches him in his nuts. A lot of nut shots in that sequence. There's a big final battle where the Hulk is fighting David Banner, who I guess is supposed to be Absorbing Man, and it's one of the most bizarre and confusing sequences in any comic book movie I have ever seen. Like, say what you want about The Incredible Hulk. I know that's not one of the better MCU movies out there, but that first Hulk sequence where he's going up against the military, it's very tension-filled, it's scary, and that big final battle with the Abomination is just awesome. Even though the CGI has certainly not aged well in that movie, it was really cool back then, and I think it's still cool today. Which, speaking of the CGI in this movie, Hulk, has never looked good. Even in 2003, the Hulk looked like a giant green turd. And I don't know, the way he runs, the way he just jumps all over the place, it's just too goofy. And it would have worked if this movie had more fun with itself, which it doesn't. This movie's trying to be a very serious drama. And I get trying to do that with the Bruce Banner and Hulk character, but with this particular movie, it just doesn't work at all. I can't even stress to you guys how boring this movie is. If you've never seen it, just take my word for it. There are snippets of unintentionally funny moments scattered throughout, but most of the time, the movie reminds me of Jaws the Revenge. Now, I'm not saying Ang Lee's Hulk is as bad as Jaws the Revenge, not even close. By comparison of Jaws the Revenge, Hulk is a masterpiece. Like, it could be one of the greatest comic book movies ever made next to Jaws the Revenge. But both movies suffer from the same issues where they're mostly boring. They're mostly just tedious and uninteresting family dramas with snippets of unintentionally funny moments. In Jaws the Revenge, it's the Play-Doh shark being stabbed by a boat made out of popsicle sticks in a bathtub. And in Ang Lee's Hulk, it's when Glenn Talbot tries to kill the Hulk with a grenade launcher, only for the actual grenade ammo to bounce off the Hulk, go behind a wall, and it explodes right behind Talbot, killing him. But there's this freeze frame of Talbot just going, "Ah!" And he gets engulfed in flames, and we go to a very awkward comic book style transition to the next sequence. Yeah, that's how bizarre this movie can get. Now, is there anything about this movie that I like that's not a backhanded compliment? Something that's not unintentionally funny? Well, I like the Set Me Free song by Velvet Revolver that plays during the credits. I think the song is pretty awesome, but the only problem is that it doesn't quite work with this movie. This movie, for being as serious as it is, and for this song to be as very punk rock and kick-ass as it is, doesn't make for good bedfellows. So I guess that's why they played it during the credits. It's probably the most enjoyable thing about this movie. It's the only thing I remember about the movie, and it's not even part of the movie itself. It's a part of the end credits. So I guess in hindsight, there's nothing that I actually like about this movie, but at the same time, there's nothing about it that I hate. I watched this movie with the anticipation of this is going to be so goofy and absurd that I might kind of like it in that aspect. But I was slightly disappointed that the movie is as boring as it is. It's not anger-inducing, but goddamn, I don't think I'll ever revisit this again. I mean, thank God I can just listen to the Set Me Free song on the soundtrack, because there is really nothing about this movie that warrants revisiting. And speaking of music, before I actually give my rating, this might very well be Danny Elfman's worst score, at least within comic book movies, because his score for Spider-Man is incredible, and I wonder if this movie was just going, hey, we need to copy Spider-Man's success in some way, let's bring in Danny Elfman to do the music. And I guess the main title song is good, but the rest of the score is just so bland and so forgettable that it's disappointing. So I'd say don't waste your money on it. There's really no reason to ever watch this movie. Not because it's awful, but because it's so bland, and there's only snippets of unintentionally funny moments. Like, if you want to see those moments, just look at them on YouTube. Or if this movie ends up on some streaming service like HBO Max or Peacock, then watch those sequences there, because you don't have to watch the entire movie to enjoy those hilariously bad moments. But to have to sit through the entirety of this movie, it is so not worth it. And anyone that says that The Incredible Hulk is a worse movie than this, I'm not going to say you're an idiot, because, you know, you're entitled to your own opinion, but I kind of question your opinion. And there you go, that's my review for Ang Lee's Hulk. Now, next week I'm going to be making a special video in terms of announcements for future retro reviews, and just the overall future of this channel. Some of it might be information that you guys probably don't want to hear, but there will be some good stuff. It's not going to be bad. Trust me on that when I say it's not going to be bad. It's probably going to be another live stream instead of a pre-recorded video, so I'll keep you guys updated next week. But for now, I want to know what you guys think about Ang Lee's Hulk. If you've seen it, what did you think? Whatever the case may be, let me know in the comments below. And until next time, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there is only one. Hello everyone, I just wanted to say thank you all for watching my review for Hulk. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell button to get notifications. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, go check out my Twitch channel, and support me on Patreon. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a good day and take care of yourselves.